Hi, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Hangin Tough, the new video series brought to you by the Massachusetts Live Events Coalition. We are very excited for today's call, where we will be going through national legislation with some amazing experts who have been working and advocating for live event workers, both in Massachusetts and throughout the nation. We're pleased to be joined by Adam Valen, Michael Strickland, Stephanie Freed and Grant McDonald, coming from Extend PUA, We Make Events in North America, and NIVA. Thank you for joining us. And we are going to jump right in. Just want to introduce you to everyone. Stephanie, Grant, Michael, and Adam. Stephanie and Grant, thank you for joining us from Extend PUA. Can you just let us know a little bit about the organization and how you got started?
Sure. I'm Stephanie. I'm a production electrician and lighting designer in the live events industry when it's open. And we started extendpua.org when we realized that $600, what we were relying on in July, or have been relying on, but in July it was about to expire. So we started the organization to start advocating for that $600, and quickly that grew into extending the PUA and healthcare and rent relief and all the other things we really needed. We realized a lot of us were at a loss for what to do. And so we tried to find a way to do it ourselves and then put those resources out there for everybody else. Grant.
I'm Grant McDonald. I am a video director for concerts and theater and live events when I am not advocating with extendpua.org. But I think, Stephanie, I think you summed up exactly what we do, so I don't need to go into that.
Perfect. Thank you. And Michael Strickland, can you let us know about We Make Events?
Yeah, thank you very much, Thomas. I'm Michael Strickland. I'm the chair of Bandit Lites. I actually sort of represent all of the organizations here. I'm kind of a champion for anyone and everyone in the live event business. No one more than anyone else, but We Make Events, as I think most of you know, is an organization that was stood up, and the first big thing we did in 9 days was like 2,500 buildings across America. And since then, we've continued our advocacy with a lot of reach outs and call to actions to Congress. I personally have spent every waking moment since March the 13th working directly with senators and representatives and their staffs across the nation, sort of trying to push the ball. And Stephanie has expanded Extend PUA. Stephanie and Grant did that really for the live event business, but they're the single loudest voice for anyone that needs that. I'm not even aware of another organization that fights for it. And Save Our Stages is also sort of a piece of this, and of the relevant legislation that's out there. There's Heroes, Heroes 2, Heals, Heals 2, though it doesn't have that name, and Restart. And those are the relevant pieces of legislation. Extended unemployment is tucked into virtually all of those, and Save Our Stages is tucked into Heroes 2. And Restart is kind of the bastard child that's sitting over on the corner of the table. And what's going to happen at some point is the legislators are going to come pick the bones of all of those and craft some sort of something which will take care of us in one way or another. And as Stephanie is tired of hearing me say, because the enhanced unemployment is so important to everyone, I feel like she's backed the right horse, and she's done a phenomenal job. And Stephanie, hats off to you and Grant, but that's what I'm up to.
Thank you. And Adam, can you let us know about NIVA?
Sure, thank you. And to Grant, Stephanie, and Michael, what you guys are doing is incredible. So by day prior to the pandemic, I'm the marketing manager at a promoter in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania called Drusky Entertainment, but we quickly pivoted with the other 3,000 members of the National Independent Venue Association, which is a collective of independent venues, promoters, festival operators across America and all 50 states and DC, with the collective goal to lobby to Congress for federal aid for independent venues that have been devastated by the impacts of COVID-19. And again, been lobbying Congress for the last 7 or 8 months or so, pushing the Save Our Stages Act. as well as the Restart Act and extension of PUA.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. We are extremely happy to see you guys, and thank you all for participating in the other events and activations we've had, like our case pushes, our empty event, and our empty wedding. You guys have really championed so many of these issues for so many people in the Massachusetts live events world. And really, I can't thank you enough virtually. If I was there, I'd give you a high five each. Unless you're a hugger, then I would do that if you needed me to. But one of the things that we noticed is the massive confusion. As Michael mentioned, we have the Restart Act, Save Our Stages, HEALS, HEALS 2, HEROES, HEROES 2. And unfortunately, we haven't had to be so aware of current legislation until this until this pandemic, where these specific bills have monumental outcomes on whether or not we can survive as people and as small event businesses, medium-sized event businesses. So it's really important that we kind of break these up. So the format of today will be going through with each organization specific legislation that they have been advocating for, and getting a better understanding of what's going on, what that legislation exactly is, and hopefully answer some of the questions that were submitted from our coalition. So we are going to kick that off with Extend PUA and talking about more of the comprehensive relief packages, HEROES 2.0, and what is going on with that. So thank you, Stephanie and Grant, for joining us. And if you could just give us kind of an overview and what's going on as of today.
Yeah, I just want to first say that our organization is not specifically advocating for HEROES, but we're more than happy to talk about it as an option. We look at every piece of legislation through the lens of, does it meet the 10 comprehensive asks that we have in our mission? So for HEROES, the answer is mostly yes. So HEROES is a $3.4 trillion comprehensive solution passed by the House in May. It has extended and expanded enhanced unemployment insurance, including the $600 until January, and then PUA until March. It has provided for funding for state and local governments. It extended and expanded healthcare relief, including COBRA and Medicaid expansions. It implemented a rent and mortgage relief plan. It had hazard pay for essential workers. It had $10 million to the NEA and NEH, and extended PPP to nonprofits. It didn't fully meet the needs of small businesses, but I think our business advocates on the panel can speak to that a little better later on. But that is HEROES 1 in a nutshell. And then we also have HEROES 2.0, which I think, Stephanie, you might be a little better suited to speak about.
Sure. So HEROES 2 cut $1 trillion from that bill in an effort to negotiate a little bit down. But the things that are still, most of our mission is still in HEROES 2, and actually a couple more things are in it, which is exciting. There's still the full 600 in there. It's only retroactive now to September instead of all the way to August, which is a little disappointing, but I think they're taking into account the lost wages assistance program. And it extends unemployment weeks only till January now, which is how they cut some of the money out of it. It doesn't go through March anymore. But in our conversation with Pelosi's office, the intention there was that they will have another bill with a new administration. So this bill was meant to hold us through January. It also remedies the mixed income issues that a lot of people who are on 1099s and W-2s, it has a little provision in there that is supposed to fix that issue for them. It has small business legislation, it has Save Our Stages, it has rent and mortgage assistance, it has funding for state and local governments, healthcare support, vaccine and COVID treatment support, food assistance funding, and more. But it meets our needs, and then more than that. And then I guess in opposition to that, or on the other side of the aisle, you have the HEALS and HEALS 2.0. HEALS was $1 trillion, and then 2.0 is 500 billion, I believe. But it is the current skinny bill proposal out of the GOP, and it is 285 pages, and the first third of it is liability protections, which is a little frustrating on our end because they call it this big bill for American families. But if you look at the section specifically called Assistance for American Families, it's 2 pages, and the whole bill is 285 pages. But aside from that, the things that it includes are liability protections, which could potentially hurt a lot of workers. It includes a second PPP loan, and it includes funding for schools, but most of that funding, 2/3 of it, is contingent on you reopening those schools. It's not to keep you closed. And then it includes the FPUC, but only $300 instead of $600, and only until the end of the year. So it's not a solution anymore now that we're reaching to extend PUA's deadline. So it doesn't extend PUA, it doesn't have hazard pay, doesn't have healthcare relief, doesn't have rent relief, doesn't have stimulus payments, doesn't have funding for state governments, and it doesn't have that full 600, it just has 300. And that's kind of where we are with the 2 options that we've been presented. There's a problem solvers caucus that has put out a proposal, but it's not a bill. These are the 2 bills we have on our hands. And until this morning, no one was negotiating on it, but now it looks like they might. So that's exciting that they will actually, a conversation needs to happen. We can't just keep screaming at each other. I want heroes, I want a skinny bill. It's never gonna work.
That actually segues me into a question perfectly for you guys, which is, well, a kind of a 2-parter. One is, I know that you've had some really impactful conversations with senators. I was very fortunate enough to be a part of the conversation that you had with Senator Warren's office, which was amazing, and to hear stories of Massachusetts live events workers was incredible. And I know you've continued that throughout the United States. Where are senators standing currently in support? Is that growing? Is that changing based on these conversations?
Sorry. Yeah, so when we go and have these conversations with the senators' offices, which we so much appreciate the turnout you guys had for the Warren meeting, like 23 people showing up to one of our meetings was awesome. We don't usually have that many. And all of the work Massachusetts Live Events Coalition, just aside about that, is amazing. And we appreciate all of that. But we don't go into these Senate meetings asking for the HEROES Act. We go into them asking for the 10 asks on our mission, and we go into them mostly talking about unemployment and healthcare and rent relief. And so I can only tell you where people stand mainly on those things. And across the board, there is pretty big support. Healthcare and rent relief is more dicey, but we do have some people on both sides of the aisle saying that needs to happen. And some of them even we're surprised about. Rick Scott thinks we should have rent relief and eviction moratoriums. And the problem here is that it's not getting to the floor, because they don't want to support HEROES because HEROES is too big, and because there's not a compromise solution currently. It's not being brought to the Senate floor to even see how people would vote. But I do think if something is brought to the floor that does meet our needs, the likelihood that it gets the votes, I think, is high. But yeah, I think that answers the question.
Absolutely. So I know that you've recently, over the last 2 weeks, done Jam the Lines activation, which is to get support to get it to the floor. What kind of support or response are you seeing from those activations?
We are surprisingly, not surprisingly, but we are an underfunded organization since it's all self-funded, if you will. We don't have a lot of metrics really to measure how calls were made, but when we make our own calls at the end of the day, we hear from staff that, oh, you guys again. We do hear quite often, and they're very appreciative of how nice everybody's being about advocating for themselves, when I quite frankly would expect everyone to be a little more enraged. But we do find them to be very successful, and we're very grateful to everyone that's been participating. We've heard from a lot of Senate offices that the best way to make sure your issue stays on the minds of the senators is to keep calling. And so we keep encouraging people to call every day. And we know that it feels like, because no bill has been passed, that we have made no progress in the advocacy, but we have. It's because of the calls and events and the emails and the meetings, but the needle has already moved to where it is now. And so the needle is moving, negotiations have happened, and public pressure is working. And it's all because of events like the ones you guys put on in Massachusetts, and because of Jam the Lines and a number of other events across the United States, pushing people for comprehensive relief.
If I can add something, sorry, if I can add something just really quick about that I forgot. One thing that we like to tell people is that to remember, even if you have a Democratic senator who already seems to support this, it is important to keep calling, because it goes down on their list of priorities if they don't keep hearing about it, which is unfortunate. But we have to keep calling them, and we, instead of asking them for these things, because we know they already support them, we ask them to be louder for us about them, so that they're on Twitter, they're doing press releases, they're talking about these things for us if they're a supporter of the thing.
Great, and thank you. And I mean, that's a direct call to the residents of Massachusetts. We do have 2 Democratic senators in office right now, and we will provide the information to contact them right now on screen. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, Stephanie and Grant. And we look forward to bringing you back a little later for a group conversation. Next, I am honored and delighted to introduce you all to Michael Strickland from We Make Events North America, who'll be talking about the work that he's been doing on the Restart Act.
Thank you, Thomas. Good to be here. Again, I'll go back to what I said a moment ago. All of these causes, whether it's Save Our Stages or Extend PUA or We Make Events, or there's a number of other things out there. I support all of those things. I push for all of those. And I've got most of you know, I have a 1.2 million person email chain. And when I send those letters out that many of you get, it goes to a lot of people. And the power in what everyone is doing, whether it's NIVA and NITO and their push for Save Our Stages, or whether it's Grant and Stephanie and their Extend PUA, or whether it's a We Make event or a live event coalition, whatever it is, the power is in one, and the one's being you. And a lot of people struggle with it because when we all began these things, and I think that Stephanie will agree with this, the enthusiasm was off the chart. And the longer we go, the enthusiasm dips. And I think our biggest mission, all of us on this call, is keeping our constituents engaged and involved, and understanding that if you do nothing, you get nothing. But if you do something, you might get something. And one of the things that I had to do probably 6 weeks ago, because I kept getting asked a lot, I don't think they care. I don't think they care, in reference to the legislators. And I finally had to put it in writing. They don't care. And I don't mean that rude or ugly, but they don't. You have to consider that a legislator is dealing with hundreds of bills. We're but one of those. So as they march through the bills, we're at the top of the list for a minute and a half, to the point that was made earlier, and then we're not. And as the economy has gotten better, and I've known this from day one, the 33.1% last quarter GDP growth was the worst thing in the world that could have happened for our cause. The low unemployment is the worst thing in the world that could have happened for our cause. The housing starts being tremendously up is the worst thing in the world that could. All of this good news economically leads a great number of the legislators to go, well, shoot, they don't need anything else. 85% of the businesses are operating at a profit or better. It's just this little tiny narrow niche. And what is the niche? The niche is 100% of live events, and then the odd restaurant, the odd gym, the odd shoe shop. And I'm not making light of those folks. They're with us. They need support too. But when you talk directly to the legislative folks, they say, well, you know, there's damage sometime. So all of our mission, all of these great organizations, and it's getting very focused, is to let the legislators know live events and live events alone sit at zero and will till March, April, or May of next year. We have no other fix. We have no other option. And when you look at HEALS and when you look at HEROES, there's nothing in either one of those aside from what Stephanie covered: additional PPP, additional enhanced unemployment, but there's no mechanism except in HEROES 2, where they've tucked in Save Our Stages. And Save Our Stages provides grant money, $10 billion for independent venues, managers, and agents. But that's only 8% of our industry. So that's a win, and it's a win that I fully support and that we support. But then there's everybody else. So to be for heels, or to be for heroes, sort of takes us 3 steps down a 10-step journey. And that's why I have pushed, and the industry needs to push Restart, because that gives everyone 45% of last year's revenue. The bit that you spend on payroll and payroll related items and utilities and mortgages and rents and PPP, that gets forgiven. The rest of it converts to a 7-year loan with no payments in the first year, interest only in the second year, and then 1% for years 3 through 7. And that gives people a big enough runway to get through this. And one of the confusing things for a lot of folks is the way Restart has been rewritten. Freelancers can do that. So last year, if you made $100,000, you could dip in and get $45,000. And for a freelancer or an independent contractor, it's all forgiven because it all goes to pay you. So it is all forgiven. So it is a solution that helps everybody a great deal. There are 2 problems with it. First is, when it was written last year in April and May, it said anyone with a 25% reduction in revenue could participate. The other was any company with 5,000 people or less. Fast forward to today, while we have 56 senators and 179 representatives signed on, and we even have support broader than that, the one pushback is now that bill with those limits scores at about $800 billion, and it will never fit into any of the other packages. So we've got to narrow it by making the lost revenue trigger be 50% and the size of the company be 500 or less. And I have worn that out with Senator Young and Senator Bennett, who originally authored the bill. Away from the public, they've agreed that probably needs to be done. But until they publicly come out and narrow the scope so that it scores at $250 billion, there's going to be some pushback to obtaining that. And the final piece, if anything happens between now and the end of the year, it is my opinion, because of hundreds of conversations, the best thing we're going to hope for this year is enhanced unemployment extension and another round of PPP, and perhaps the $1,200 stimulus checks. In terms of us, and I'm leaving all the other things that were brought up about education and medication and all that, those things, while they relate to all of us, I'm focused on helping the people and the companies. I think the bigger play for more money, whatever it is, will be kicked into next year.
Thank you. So looking at the Restart Act, it says that it's for small and medium-sized companies, and for a rehire grant of 120% of up to 6 months, which I think is probably the 45% revenue that you had mentioned. Right. You know, pretty straightforward. Based on how things are looking and trending for business booking, is 6 months going to be enough in your opinion?
Stephanie knows this. I don't know whether you do or not, Thomas, but I also have a medical hat. I'm on the board at the University of Tennessee Medical Center. Take 3 calls a day to do with the vaccines. I'm heavily involved in all of that. We have the big 4 over at UT in phase 3, the Moderna, the Pfizer, the Johnson & Johnson, and the AstraZeneca. And you've heard the messages in the last 4 days. I'm one that can tell you personally, all 4 of them are greater than 90%. We've got 4 real bullets for our gun. Today or tomorrow, Pfizer is going to ask for emergency use permission. Moderna is going to ask between Monday and Wednesday. They both anticipate getting that in days, which means in early December, we're going to have those 2 different vaccines being distributed. Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca expect to get their permission in mid to late December and begin giving shots in mid to late December. So we're going to go into January and February. The first people to get the medication will be the most at risk, as well as the frontline workers. It is the guess of the entire medical community that we'll start moving away from those 2 groups into Gen Pop, into the general population, at the 1st of February. And when asked the question of a great number of medical folks, they believe when we get to April and May, we will be fast approaching herd immunity. Now, does that mean we drop the mask and everything's okay? Not at all. But we will be approaching a position where we believe medically we will be ready to work at somewhat full volume. And a good indicator was last week, Live Nation did two things. Number one, they had a press release that said we expect to be back to work fully in June. But more importantly, in their money call, where they put statements out to the money market when they're looking at potential investors, they actually put in their investors call that they anticipate being at full volume by June. And again, I don't think they would have put a statement like that out there had they not had that forward-looking vision. So to answer your question, I believe we're going to be to work at a level that will be sustainable in late May, early June.
Thank you. I think that's the key word is sustainable as we venture into what people are calling the new world. And finally, you know, the Restart Act has 56 co-sponsors in the Senate, which is more than a majority, but seems to be at a standstill after hearings. Shouldn't it be enough with all these co-sponsors? And where do you see, is it waiting until next year before we see it get back onto the Senate floor?
You know, that calls for an opinion, but again, I live in the world of opinions. And for those of you that got the email, the day after the election, the fog cleared. For the first 3 days after the election, both sides of the aisle were working together. They were going to craft a bill, and then two very sad things happened. Number one is the confusion in Georgia, and number two is the confusion generally about the election. And you've got to remove the politics from it. Doesn't matter what side of the issue you're on. Suddenly, you've got the potential of the Senate either staying with the Republicans or going to the Democrats, and we won't know that till January 5th. Then you've got the confusion over the election, and we won't know that until that all plays out. Now, you may think that you know that, and you may be right, but the point is we had two confusion bombs thrown into it. So I had 3 or 4 days of people, both sides of the aisle, going, we're going to get this done. We're going to work together. And then they went, well, wait a minute, the game board may look different. It may not be like we think it is. So that sort of put the fog back in. You know, there is still, as someone alluded to earlier, actually yesterday, Pelosi and Schumer sent a letter to the White House stating, we're ready to work together, let's get it done. And so there is a renewed desire to do it. You're now wondering into my opinion. My opinion is that you've got Pelosi and Schumer sitting here at Heroes 2 at 2.2 trillion, and you've got McConnell sitting at the skinny bill at 500 million, and there we are. You know, I hope and pray that they at least carve out those three things, because here's been the question that everyone asks, and indeed the rank and file, because I talk to the rank and file every day, both sides of the aisle, they want to get these three things done. It's the leadership. The leadership's digging their heels in. So rank and file wants to get it done. There is no reason, because let's look at the scenarios. If we get it done now and the Democrats control everything, then they do the rest of what they want to do. If we get it done now, those three things, and the Republicans keep the Senate and or the White House is almost irrelevant at this point. But if the Republicans keep the Senate, then the fight will continue as to whether it's the big bill or the skinny bill. But either way, I don't believe the leverage that you gain from enhanced unemployment and extended PPP and the $1,200 check factors into it. And the rank and file agrees with that. They don't understand why those three things have been kept in there. And a funny aside note in all of this was there was a complete agreement with the airlines industry that they were going to get $28 billion 6 weeks ago. And that just dissipated, just completely dissipated. But we're not here to fight for the airlines, but I find that funny. So that's kind of where I think it is. And I pray that they do get these three things done between now and the end of the session. and then we'll go to work next year on bigger, broader things.
And that leads me actually to a really important question, because you have been so vocal about something that I 100% agree with, which is, why is it that the airline industry, the auto industry, and other industries, and including restaurants, are getting so much press and awareness? What can we do as a coalition, as individual members, and just as people with a concern do to get that recognition and advocacy?
Thomas, that's a fantastic question. Thank you for asking. It's very, very simple. In the middle of the game, legislators started being very truthful with me, and they said, Michael, live events doesn't have two things. You don't have a lobby and you don't have a PAC. You do not give us any money. You are in the end of the line. Because we get money from these other folks. The Airlines Association gathers under all of the airlines gather under the Airline Association. The Restaurant Association represents all the restaurants, and they give a lot of money, and they have a lot of lobbying going on, so they get taken care of. Now, we were told there would be no targeted relief, and lo and behold, in Heroes and Heroes 2, there's 120 billion just for restaurants. That's because the restaurants have a phenomenally big PAC, and the reason that the threshold for lost income sits at 25% in Restart as opposed to 50, again, is the effect of the restaurant folks. Their lobby and their money keeps that trigger low so they can come feed at the trough with everyone else. So what we have already begun to do, and it will involve all of these great organizations, it is my goal and other people working with me that, and this is the long play, that's, by the middle of next year, we brought everybody together under a roof so that we have a lobby and a PAC. And the next time we need something like this, even though we'll have separate entities that fight for what they need, we'll have a single voice holistically.
Thank you. And, it's my hope that we can have that as well. Thank you for everything that you are doing personally, Michael, and also everything that We Make Events North America and We Make Events Europe are doing over in Europe, because both organizations have done some incredible activations. And I will never look at a red building the same again. It will always remind me of all of the live event workers in the country. So thank you.
We've got another event coming. You'll hear about it in a few days. It's called Red Skies.
And I will be there in Massachusetts doing whatever I need to do to light whatever sky red that you need.
This is a play with the pyro people. The wonderful pyro people have stepped up across the nation, and they've got a lot of pyro powder. So we're going to do a Red Skies at night.
Amazing. Thank you, Michael. Next, we're going to bring Adam up with NIVA and tell us a little bit about the Save Our Stages Act. We've heard about it earlier, but let us know about it.
Thank you. And thank you again for having me and all these wonderful organizations here that, NIVA truly does support all of these mission statements. And I guess just to give a little background on the SOS Act, where it is now and what it is now, it is a bipartisan and bicameral bill that is in the House and Senate. It's a $10 billion grant program that is designated for live venue operators, promoters, producers, and talent representatives, where we've been working very closely with the Independent Talent Organization, or NITO. And it's designed for the eligible recipients in it are designed to target those that have 500 or fewer full-time equivalents. And, these funds, the bill itself, the amount, the recipient for the bill, they're eligible for grants that are no greater than 45% of their gross revenue from 2019, or 12 million. And these grants that are issued, God forbid if passed, are to be used for anything from payroll and benefits to rent, utilities, mortgage interest payments, PPE, payments to 1099 employees, and other ordinary and necessary business expenses that have been incurred due to the interruption from COVID-19.
Thank you. So I do have a big question. So you have, as the main sponsors of Save Our Stages, Senator Klobuchar and Senator Cornyn, two, very different senators, in my opinion, but both have been wildly outspoken and really at the forefront of getting Save Our Stages out there. It's not often that you hear about Senator Klobuchar being in the Rolling Stone magazine. Or Senator Cornyn talking about his experiences at live events. So it's been really cool. How did that relationship start?
So at the advice of NIVA's lobbyists, from the beginning, there was never really an intention of an industry specific Save Our Stages bill that was like in the pipeline for NIVA. We really just wanted to echo the support and the need for an industry that, when the pandemic started, we realized very quickly that it was, the lights were going to be dark for a while. And while, PPP was a very quick act to roll out, it wasn't a sufficient program for, really any of our industries. And at the forefront of Restart, which we still continue to support, in the House and Senate, again, our lobbyists had told us, don't go after an industry specific bill. And then flash forward to, I think it was in July, Senator Cornyn came to our lobbyists and said, hey, I want to introduce a bill for the industry. And, we came back and said, what do we do? You told us not to do this. And they said, when a senator comes to your door and asks, hey, I want to introduce a bill for you, you say, thank you, ma'am, or thank you, sir. How can we help? And they've just been, incredible advocates along the way between Senator Cornyn and Senator Klobuchar. And it's just truly been such an overwhelming amount of support from the legislature to this point.
Yeah, you have 53 co-sponsors currently, which, when we mentioned in the restart, it seems like it's enough. It's the majority. But again, the bill seems to be stuck in committee. What's your opinion on why there's a standstill, and what do you think the future holds for it?
Yeah, I mean, I think actually to this point now, I think as of today, we're at 56 Senate co-sponsors, and 56 Senate co-sponsors and 160 in the House. Like I mentioned before, it's a bipartisan, bicameral effort. And to everybody's point, well, it was in the second passage of the HEROES Act, passed by Speaker Pelosi, passed by Secretary of Treasury Mnuchin. Unfortunately, it's just been the need for we've constantly been hearing COVID relief bills since day one, and there have been all these hiccups along the way that have really gotten in the way of the priority that there has not been a comprehensive solution to address the needs of all these industries that are hurting and that are in like the hardest hit categories, and that includes and within our industry alone, the millions that are employed under our roofs, and all of the companies that we outsource for our events. While these events are dark, we don't have the capability of providing any kind of meaningful support. And it's just truly heartbreaking to see that these parties, up until Stephanie mentioned that parties are finally starting to talk, and we're hopeful that something comes together in lame duck. But it's just that trying to put politics aside and trying to show that businesses and entrepreneurs and people, Americans, are just truly suffering right now. So we're just truly trying to push the fact that, look, these parties need to come together to get a bill together to support Americans that are truly suffering during this time of complete uncertainty.
Thank you. Kind of complete uncertainty related, in June, NIVA had released a survey that said 90% of independent venues would report that they would shutter by the end of the calendar year. We are looking towards, just after the Ides of November and the beginning of the end of the year. Is this actually what's happening?
I mean, yeah, I think that the grassroots efforts that we have accomplished from an organization that didn't exist and same to everybody here. I mean, the grassroots efforts that have been done have, you know, completely inspired, you know, all of us across the country, even with our legislature. And I think, you know, what we're seeing now is, you know, well, the hope is there, and I think that hope is trying to inspire people to continue to keep their doors open just a little bit longer. But what we're realizing is that these dire straits that we projected when we first surveyed our membership in April, the 90% of venues are not going to be able to withstand 6 months or longer without any kind of targeted relief. We're starting to see that now, you know, every day that venues are starting to close their doors. And in PA here, we had an amazing 250 cap theater in Philadelphia called the Boot and Saddle, and they had to shut their doors in an effort to sell off assets in the building so that they could keep their sister venue, the Union Transfer, open. No venue should have to be, no business owner or entrepreneur should have to be put in that situation at no fault of their own. And what we're seeing is across the country, you know, it's not a what venues are closing every month. We're getting reports by the day of venues starting to close their doors, and especially with rampant rises in cases and you know, just the uncertainty of events coming back in any capacity until fall, you know, we're here, you know, whether it's late spring or fall 2021, we're really trying to batten down the hatches for what's going to be a long winter. And until there is any kind of meaningful support, we're going to probably start to see more continue to see more closed every day. It's now no longer, you know, the conversations that I'm having with venue owners and promoters are no longer, can I make it another month? It's, can I make it to next week? Which is, you know, just, these are just truly disheartening conversations to have, and the lack of support that is, you know, the lack of action that has been taken to this point, and how it's taken this long for something to happen has just truly been, you know, it's been frustrating to say the least.
Yes, I think we all echo your sentiment that it has been frustrating, and it is really heartbreaking as all of us watch memories like go out the window when these venues close. Like it's heartbreaking. I had to stop checking the Rolling Stone list about 2 months ago because it is just insane.
But if I could interject though, I mean, I think on the flip side though, because I am, like, throughout this whole process trying to stay cautiously optimistic, and I think we use that term a lot, but I mean, like, what the grassroots effort that has inspired from this, even, you know, it was tragic to hear about, like, with Great Scott, but the amount of support that has come out in support of these independent spaces that have, you know, inspired their community has truly been what is moving us every single day. And you know, we're talking about, you know, trying to find relief for this industry. It truly is, you know, the squeaky grease gets the wheel, or the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Sorry. But you know, we're starting to see the outpour of support, which is really, again, we cannot stress the fact enough that we have to be calling our senators, calling our representatives every day, and making sure that they understand that this needs to be a priority. If the lack of communication, you know, starts to ensue, they're going to start to think that, you know, we're okay. You know, we're seeing that venues are having events in limited capacity and they're live streaming events, and realistically, those things aren't economically feasible. I mean, at any kind of percentage capacity does not work for our industry. And you know, we need to be not only, you know, at 100% capacity to be even able to make these razor thin profit margins work, but we need to rely on a nationwide reopening for artists to be safe touring, to, you know, have the tools to properly rehire our staff and retrain our staff, all the necessary adjustments that we have to make to the actual physical space to be able to adapt to, you know, whatever this, you know, quote, new normal is going to be in the live event sphere. So while we keep trying to pound the pavement and keep keeping up the drumbeat, that kind of support mechanism has been really inspiring for a lot of us here at NIVA, and it's what's been pushing folks to, you know, want to stay open another week or another month.
So for venue owners who may be watching this and venue operators who are watching this, Save Our Stages has some pretty specific verbiage of what would be classified as a venue that could be kept afloat and pay employees for 6 months. I think you have to meet 2 of the listed qualifications, and you have to have had ticketed events in the past, or the majority of being ticketed events. Is NIVA working on any other relief or considering any other relief for venues who this may not fully protect?
So I think I just want to start by, I guess, just starting off at the core of like what NIVA's mission was, which has always been to preserve the landscape of these independently owned music venues, theaters, talent buyers, promoters, festival operators. And I think, with that in mind, between, our 3,000 plus membership, which is an incredibly diverse membership from anywhere from small for-profits to the large PACs at top of mind. When we were forming the Save Our Stages Act, and when we were working with Senators Klobuchar and Cornyn to develop this bill, I think that we really tried to position the bill to do exactly that, which is what NIVA has set out to do, which is to preserve these mom and pop owned businesses. I think that we're truly in a position where our industry cannot pivot in a meaningful way. So I think with the Save Our Stages Act, it's really important that we ensure that these spaces do have the necessary vehicle to stay afloat. And I think where the Save Our Stages Act is for these independently owned spaces, it is there to help assist these independently owned businesses that don't have access to large lines of credit or liquidity, that aren't backed by Wall Street, that are your neighbors down the street. That being said, I think that with all of that in mind, where SOS is at right now, I think is poised to help those at which NIVA has set out to assist in from the core of their mission.
So, as someone just reading the bill, or, as our coalition reads it, it's like scary, like, will all venues classify in this? So it sounds like NIVA reached into its membership and made sure the qualifications covered everyone.
Correct. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you again for letting us know about Save Our Stages and NIVA. Again, an amazing organization. 95% of my favorite venues in the world are members. So thank you for everything that you do for them. And I can't wait to have new memories with your membership. That is going to open us up into a group discussion. Again, thank you so much for providing all of the information. And this is going to be kind of a jump in for anyone who has some thoughts on this. My first one is kind of the biggest one, and the one that everyone watching this call is probably wondering, which one has the ability to pass, or which 2, or is it one and not the other? What do we need to do to get one to pass?
I'll be glad to jump in there if I can. I'm the one that talks. I literally talk to the senators and reps every day. Let me go back to what Adam just said. Adam, you're dead right, buddy. You can't pivot. None of us can pivot. Light companies, bus companies, truck companies, sound companies, nobody can pivot. And another piece, and this ties into your question, another piece, which is the white elephant in the room. I've been on 3 national news broadcasts speaking about the state of the industry, 3 out of about 12. I can't get Fox or CNN or ABC or NBC or CBS to return a call. You can't get much mainstream media press coverage, because the biggest uphill challenge that we have is everyone that I speak to says, you work for really wealthy pop stars. If they're not taking care of you, they should be. And that's kind of what both the politicians and the media feel about what we do. Now, there's more warm and fuzzy on the venue side, because people are drawn to the Tower Theater in Philadelphia, or whatever your iconic Radio City Music Hall in New York, whatever your iconic venue is, people are drawn to those things. But outside of that, they think we work for rich pop stars, and therefore there's not a lot of sympathy for what we do. But you ask which one of these, you're going to have the house go to the wall for some version of Heroes. you're going to have the Senate go to the wall for some version of HEALS. And then you've got this bastard child called Restart with the crushed small businesses going, put it in, put it in, put it in. If the Republicans keep the Senate, that's the landscape. What do I think will happen? I think a lot of the things that are in both Heroes and Hills get thrown away. And Stephanie hates me for this. I know she does, but there's going to be some enhanced unemployment at some point. Don't know how big or how far back it looks, but I think that's the one clear winner. I think everything beyond that is, are they going to get in Save Our Stages? I don't know. Are they going to get in the Restaurant Act? I don't know. Are they going to get in some type of restart style funding going forward? I don't know. But there is a lot of conversation, as I said earlier, about taking the $597 billion stuck in the failed Main Street lending program, repurposing that for small business. And that could be the funding that helps all of us. And I think that's what they're going to do, is repurpose that $597 billion in some way, shape, fashion, or form, picking at the bones and creating a bigger bill. The difficult part about that is that's a February, March fix.
Yes. So if I can respond and go off of that a little bit as well. I think we are trying to function with a little bit of hope from our standpoint at this point, because we saw McConnell come to the table today. We'll see how much that how that goes, but there was that letter that Michael mentioned from Pelosi and Schumer, and it actually brought them together today. It was on the news that their staff will be meeting and they will have talks about stimulus. I don't think by the end of the year any of these three things we have asked for are going to pass. I agree about that completely. I think that we're going to probably, hopefully, get something targeted. And our biggest concern is that we do know that enhanced unemployment has support. There is some question of some of the targeted proposals we've seen have stimulus checks instead of unemployment and PPP. And that's not really a solution, because $1,200 didn't hold us over then. It's not holding us over now. But the biggest concern right now is that PUA and PEUC expire at the end of this year. So if there is legislation that gets to finally happen in this new administration or in sometime in 2021, 12 million people lose everything at the end of this year. So our hope is that they can come together in this negotiation and find something that will pass, rather than yelling at each other about their separate bills. And that holds us over until I do not think that these negotiations and our pushing ends in 2021 by any means. We're all going to have to keep fighting for these things and fight for the bigger bills and fight for a comprehensive solution. But I really am hoping that we can get this PUA extended before people fall off a cliff.
And I agree completely, Stephanie. And I think that is our best chance at a win this year, is the extension of the PUA this year.
If it looks like our best chance is an extension for this year, and then, to continue advocating into 2021, what can you tell us about any activations? I know, Michael, you had mentioned a future activation with the Red Sky. Any activations, any advocacy work, or anything that we can do currently, if not within your organization, to help even get some kind of measure compromised and done as soon as possible. So as Stephanie so delicately placed, these 12 million people aren't left with anything as a New Year's Day present.
Yeah, we're still trying to push the calling initiative. Everyone calling, if everyone in this industry called and said, listen, not only do we want comprehensive relief, and I think we have to stop completely only pushing heroes. I think we have to say, we need these solutions, we need these things, and we need them by the end of the year. Because I think our legislators, the news finally caught on to the whole 12 million thing in the last couple of days. But before that, people weren't thinking there was a deadline. People weren't really paying attention to that. And I don't think some of our legislators still are. So I think pushing that there's a deadline on some of this relief is really important. And that's why we have to keep calling.
And Stephanie, you're right. That they're finally The word entertainment is finally coming on television. The word events is finally being said. I finally got Marsha Blackburn last week to speak for 2 minutes about our industry on the floor of the Senate. You know, it took me 6 months to get her to do it, but she finally did it. So it's creeping in and people are becoming aware. Our industry at $877 billion is twice the size of the restaurant business, with 4 times the employee of the restaurant business. So we cannot, to Stephanie's point and to what I said earlier, we can't stop. And all of us on this phone call and all of you listening, we can't give up. We cannot give up. We got to double down and push harder, because just like Adam said earlier and Grant said earlier, if we don't call them, if we don't write them, if we don't continually contact them, we slip back a notch. And we're moving up, and with the conversations that we're getting on the floor of the House and the Senate, and the continued push between now and the end of this session, our mission must be to make them understand fully live events holistically just can't make it.
You asked Thomas about what activations we could do to stay active and stay involved, and about activations we're currently working on. The first place that you can find out about anything with extendpua.org is on our social media. We constantly communicate there. That's at extendpua. You can also find out about it on extendpua.org. Now, on our website, there is a tool that anyone can use if you're pushing restart, if you're pushing save our stages, whatever you're pushing. You can use our tool to find your senators. That's at handles.extendpua.org. It has their emails, it has their social handles, it has their phone numbers. And as of when we put our new Congress in session in January, it will also have their mailing addresses. So it will have everyone updated and ready to go for a new push then. And we also have some new things in the work with coalition partners across industries to make our voice a little louder with other face-to-face industries as well. But we'll be letting you know about that soon.
I recommend going on your phone to screenshot the information of your elected leaders and sending them to people like playing cards or trading cards, which is what I do. I also like to send people their, I have an iPhone, their contact bubble. I just send it to people randomly with the script. Extend PUA has wonderful resources if you're afraid to, talk or what you're going to say. I am unfortunately always getting a voicemail machine, which is heartbreaking because I would love to give a slice of Thomas to them. But Grant, as you so excellently did, this is a really great moment. If everyone, Michael, if you could give us your social information, contact information, or where people can learn more about Restart and We Make events.
Yeah, We Make events is wemakeevents.org. That's where you go for everything. It's just like the Extend PUA, but I have to again give a tip of the hat to Stephanie and Grant that they've got a phenomenal website that's just really wonderful. And the partner we haven't mentioned in all this that has really been helping all of us has been NAM, because I've tucked all of us up under NAM, and we have had a lobbyist, and that is NAM's lobbyist. And NAM has been lobbying holistically for live events for months and months and months, and absolutely for free. NAM's paying for it. And they have done a number of call to actions. And the power of anything that NAM does is NAM means something on the Hill. Everyone knows who they are. They've been lobbying for over 30 years. 2 years ago, they got $1.4 billion for music education. So we do have a brand name lobbying for us. And but again, go every day to any of these sites and do the clicks and email your senators and Congress people and just continue to communicate.
Thank you. And we will also, at the end of this, provide information on how to get all social handles. We make events North America and We Make events New England. Both have really informative Instagram pages, and we'll make sure you get all of that as well as everyone. And then Adam, how can we find out more about Save Our Stages and NIVA?
Yeah, the website is www.saveourstages.com. The social handles are just NIVASOC, NIVASSOC. We just launched a new advocacy platform. If you've sent a letter already, it's a new template. Again, we're just really pushing Congress to act now. There is no time. There's no time left for all of these companies to just sit by the wayside and wait for support. We need it now, and that's what we're really pushing for. We have new assets that we're pushing out that push, you don't know what you've got until it's gone. And again, as I push that, venues are starting to close by the day now. It's really becoming more and more apparent. So continuing to keep up the drumbeat and contacting your elected officials to let them know that the live events industry and independent venues are important to you, and that they need to be preserved because they are a critical part of the economic recovery for a lot of these metropolitan, suburban, urban, rural areas.
Thank you. And then my final question, and we'll go one by one for everyone, is specifically, aside from calling our elected officials and remaining to beat the drum and keep our activations going, is there anything specifically our coalition members can do to join the organizations or to find out about further activations? Why don't we start with Stephanie or Grant?
Yeah, I feel so weird that I'm about to say this, but get on Twitter. Twitter is surprisingly a really great tool for advocacy. It is effective in getting to legislators. It has been effective for us in getting to media. And so get on Twitter, follow us, retweet things we do until you're comfortable retweeting your own things or tweeting your own things. Or at Extend PUA, and get on there and make some noise and watch what your legislators are saying and reply. That is more often useful than it is to just straight tweet at them. And if you reply quickly, like you put some notifications on and then you can reply to them very fast, you can possibly be seen by some of their staff or things like that. And then the other thing I would say as another partially shameless plug is that we are always looking for volunteers. We are only a few people trying to do the things we're doing, and we welcome any additional help.
And Michael, how can we assist yourself in We Make Events and the Restart Act?
First, I would say respond to any and every call to action you receive from any event-related organization. There's 15 other organizations we didn't mention today. Anything from any event organization, respond to it, do the tweet, do the letter, whatever. In the tweets, going back to what Stephanie said, tag the legislators, tag other people, because the tags, of course, drag the tweet and the visibility other places. And then I would urge everybody that's listening to this, post everything that you get or you see from any of these organizations on all forms of your social media, from website to Facebook to Twitter to Instagram to Snapchat to whatever it is that you have. Just continually post it, and probably most importantly, don't give up. And that's where we are right now. I'm sure Stephanie and Adam, I'm sure you feel the same way, that we're now pulling some of our folks to keep them with us, because you're probably like me, you get the phone calls going, geez, we've done this for months. Why continue? Because if you quit, you lose, and we can't quit.
Thank you. And Adam?
You guys both put it so perfectly. First and foremost, the Twitter thing, I did not realize, like, up until this point, how active legislators were on Twitter. And yeah, that is just such, like, to find out that a lot of legislators are actively personally checking their Twitter accounts as a mechanism to engage with their community. Continue to do that. Tell your story. If you're someone at home that has an experience, either as somebody in the workforce, as a fan of live entertainment, tell your story. Talk about a time that was meaningful to you. If you I know people that have gotten engaged at our venues locally, and talking about a time that brought you into town. Just continuing to tell your story, and to Michael's point too, just don't give up. We have to keep the passion forward, and just finding the little bits of energy that can keep us pushing forward to the next day, and just finding ways to have conversations like these where we can figure out ways to collaborate and just continue to get the word out. It's the only way that we're going to keep pushing forward is to just continue to have conversations, because there's going to be a point down the road where we are able to recover from this, and we're going to figure out ways that we can bring back these parts of nightlife bigger and stronger than ever.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for participating in this. This has been our first episode, and we look forward to our next, which will be talking specifically about Massachusetts state information as well as small business administration information. We look forward to seeing you then. Thank you all again for participating and supporting the Massachusetts Live Events Coalition. Thank you guys, and have a great night.